Hey, it's good old boy Mike.
This is good old boy Dave.
From Sips, Suds, and Smokes. Sips, Suds, and Smokes covers wine, tea, coffee, distilled spirits, whiskey, scotch, beer, cigars.
People whose first name starts with Q.
Bad fake British accents.
And we always take time to make fun of the people of Alabama.
Banned once again.
It's a 1-hour episode that's mildly entertaining for about 22 minutes.
I think mildly would be a vast improvement.
Well, we do have the only beer show with the Holy Man. We talk about these products and rate them with our unique rating system, like our Suds 5 rating. Do you really have something better to do with your life for an hour than actually listen to this show?
Well, don't make them think about it.
Well, join us on this radio station, podcast network, or via our Android app.
Welcome to the Fantasy NBA Today podcast.
There have been times that I've had thoughts about doing something different on a Monday during the regular season, and then I thought, why? Why fix something that's not broken? Why adjust something that's just so perfect? I kid, of course. I just think it's a really good way to reset our brains, get settled for the week ahead. After weekends that I think for most people it's a little bit harder to stay locked in on every game as they're going. There's just something mentally that's a little bit harder than that. That's why we do reverse chronological lightning round Monday. It's a speed run through the weekend to make sure we're all kind of caught up on everything going on with each team individually. It's easier to do it this way than it is to go through the teams alphabetically. I believe going through alphabetically just feels kind of weird. It's not the way the brain processes basketball scores. So that's what we do. Welcome to the show, everybody. It's Fantasy NBA Today. It's Monday, the last day of January. We have almost cleared another month. We're more than 60% of the way through the NBA season. We are 10 days from the NBA trade deadline. And I start today's show by letting all of you guys know that we will, like usual here at Sports Ethos, have our annual trade deadline live show. But this year, we will be starting the live show an hour earlier, and it's going to be a 5-hour monster. 8 a.m. Pacific time, 11 a.m. Eastern, until an hour past the deadline. So 1 p.m. on the Pacific Coast, 4 p.m. Eastern. So 11 to 4 Eastern, 8 to 1 Pacific. I just, there's always stuff that's going on in the morning, and I'm looking at it like, why aren't we on air yet? Why aren't we on air yet? And then stuff breaks throughout the day. I have some of the lineup. You'll hear from David Williams, Keith Cork, Adam King, Steve Vidovich, Sam Orlick, Josh Millman, Corbin Ford, and, of course, myself and our CEO, Aaron Bruski, the founder of Sports Ethos and formerly Hoopball, plus more. I haven't finished the list yet of folks coming on this thing. It's going to be a wingding. We always have a lot of fun with it. We take the trades as they happen and go straight to the fantasy analysis. How do you find it? Go to youtube.com/sportsethos. That's a pretty easy one. youtube.com/sportsethos. It's the only thing that's scheduled that hasn't happened yet. I've been tweeting links out from my own Twitter account at Dan Besbris, DanBesbris. Go there, set a reminder. I think that's something you can do. You can just hit the little alarm clock button on the page so you get an email, little bloop reminder when the trade deadline show fires up. And please click the thumbs up button on the page. If we can kind of preload it with a lot of thumbs up, that'll help this thing get in front of more people. This is kind of a cool way for us here at Sports Ethos to do something super fun. We have a blast doing it. I know you guys enjoy watching it because it's the analysis you want fantasy-wise on trades that are going down, not, the big box sites. They're talking about this stuff as it pertains to actual real-life wins and losses, but who cares about that crap? We got fantasy teams to run. So please do head over there, find this link. I'll try to put it actually in the podcast description starting today up until trade deadline Thursday. I'll put the link in the podcast description so you can click it through there, Click the thumbs up button, please. There's like multiple thousands of you that listen to this podcast. If even a small fraction of you go to the link, click the thumbs up button, and preload us with a bunch of those. This takes no time at all. This literally takes like 4 seconds. It'll really help us reach a ton of people on Thursday morning, February the 10th. So that should be a lot of fun. But let's dive straight into the reverse chronological lightning round, starting with the Clippers and the Hornets. And, funny thing is, this is probably the game that's going to take us the longest to break down. And it's right out of the chute because the Clippers are a super confusing team right now. And I know this game was blowout rules, so you don't want to read too much into it, but it's also not that different from a game in Miami on Friday, which wasn't a blowout. And the box score mishmash was relatively similar in that game to this one, which effectively is saying we're going to play who works. In this game, again, blowout rules, we have to grain of salt, that kind of thing. In this game, 9 Clippers played between 20 and 28 minutes. 9 guys saw not quite starters minutes, close, but not quite. But the guys that have been consistently up there lately are Luke Canard and Amir Coffey. You guys have heard me talk a lot in this podcast about how I think Amir Coffey is going to run really hot and really cold. His fantasy game is pretty well predicated on scoring. So if that's not happening, if he's not getting the shots, if they're not going down, the fantasy stuff, there isn't a lot to buttress his nightly fantasy output. That's why I've put him more in the top of the streamer departments right now, because most of the games are going to be decent, but it's not going to be a big difference maker kind of stream. It's going to be like, oh, okay, good. Like, I'm falling behind in games played. Amir Coffey's a guy who's healthy and should help keep pace in something like that. Of everybody on the team right now, I actually like Luke Canard the most, which I've kind of kicked back and forth, but I paid really close attention to the last 2 Clippers games because I was concerned about this. I was like, okay, well, what's happening with Canard? He's been shooting the ball well, so that the threes, the points, they've been sort of artificially inflated by warm shooting. But at the same time, the real big key recently to Canard's value is that he's orchestrating the offense for about half the ball game now. Reggie Jackson gets a chunk of time. If Eric Bledsoe's playing well, sometimes he sees a little bit of that orchestrator role, but it's going heavily these days to Luke Canard. He had 10 rebounds in this game on Sunday. That's not something that you can say is going to happen regularly, but he's running the offense. So the assists are up, and this will probably stick until Paul George comes back, because Marcus Morris was back for this ball game. I know Nick Batum was out, and that takes us down another road. So first thing is, Luke Canard, I'm satisfied at this point. I've seen enough to say he's an ad, start him. There will be some bad games mixed in, but the good are going to likely outweigh the bad. Even though he doesn't get defensive stats, there's enough other stuff right now. We've gone through players like this before who don't get defensive stats, but Canard hits threes, very good free throw shooter, good assist numbers lately. I think that can actually counterweight the lack of steals and blocks. Marcus Morris is back from the personal leave, and he was fine. He took 12 shots. I've always said that 12 shots is kind of his barrier number, and I think he probably gets that. His minutes were down because he hadn't played in a while and because it was a blowout. He's a guy I think I would probably roster, but I'm not totally sold on it. Like, we're talking about top 90, 95 upside, and that's not much upside. At least with Canard, there's like top 80 kind of upside. And that's the thing. That's the rub with the Clippers. There really isn't a player on the team right now that has game-changing upside. The only guy who comes close is actually Isaiah Hartenstein, who, if he played 25, 26 minutes a game, he has top 60, top 70 type of upside. That's a guy that moves the boulder forward. We've used that metaphor before. He saw 21 minutes in this one. Again, blowout, possibly blowout related. If beats his Zubats, only 20 minutes. He probably would have seen a few more if this game was closer. I'm not fully sold on Hartenstein getting enough minutes going forward. I am sold on his fantasy stat set, which is why he's a guy that I'm watching like a hawk. I know that in some Roto Games Cap types of leagues, you can squat on him. I don't think anyone's getting out of his way at the trade deadline. Like, I don't think anybody's taking Serge Ibaka from the Clippers. If they don't want to play him, they're just going to have to sit him. At which point, maybe it gets close enough, but I'm probably not using up a roster spot on that right now. So that was, the Clippers, again, probably the team we were going to talk about the most of all 30, and we knocked them out right out of the chute. For instance, on the Charlotte side, there's nothing. Mason Plumlee, P.J. Washington continue to split the center minutes, and it's lame. Gordon Hayward still in protocols, Cody Martin taking his spot, and not doing much. LaMelo Ball's picked it back up, kind of went through a little dog days thing. Now he's ramping back up again. He's had a week or so of first-round value after about a month and a half of third-round value, such as the long haul of an NBA season. Lakers without LeBron James. That changed over the weekend, actually. That was happening right, I think, after our Friday show, where he got ruled out with a sore knee. And then there was this whole Sunday morning discrepancy where our buddies over at NBC reported that he was expected to miss 6 ball games, but that was unsubstantiated. And what happened, I believe, not to be an apologist, but I do love the guys over there. We've worked with them a lot. I believe the error came from the fact that in the ESPN article that was referencing LeBron heading back to Los Angeles early, he wasn't with the Lakers for this game in Atlanta, it talked about how he was expected to play when the team got back from their game against Portland on Wednesday. But the game actually is against Portland at home on Wednesday. The Lakers have a road game in Portland 2 Mondays from now. And that's where that little hiccup got put in. So they thought, okay, well, he's going to play when they get back from that game in Portland 2 weeks from today. Whereas I think the indication was that ESPN biffed where the game was on Wednesday, thinking it was a road game. In fact, it's a home game. The Lakers might have him back this week. I think he probably misses another game or two. You don't want to screw around with a sore, inflamed knee, not when you're as old as Bron and not when you need to do as much as he does. At the same time, the Lakers are in a bad spot right now. They can't defend anybody, and as great as they played offensively for long stretches in this game, Lakers shot 70% in the first half of this game, and then ultimately lost because they couldn't rebound, and they let Onyeka Okongwu dunk on their heads 3 times in about a 4-minute span in the fourth quarter in the half court. That is some bad pick-and-roll defense. Big lines out of Malik Monk, Anthony Davis, Russell Westbrook. These guys are going to have to do a lot when LeBron is out. I think Carmelo Anthony even probably hits the radar again when Bron is out. But Monk is certainly the safer of the two. Carmelo is, like, he can't be in there for more than 20 minutes because of his defense. In a game like this one, they just couldn't keep him on the floor because he couldn't keep a hawk in front of him. He got obliterated in pick and roll. If you play a team, if Melo's really hot, that's a way he can stay out on the floor. If you play a team that's not trying to exploit him in the pick and roll, he can stay out on the floor that way. But like this one, the way that they try to keep Melo out of trouble is just a straight switch on a pick and roll. That's not going to work because that would have put him on Trae Young a bunch of times. So then they try other stuff, various drop coverages and what have you, and all that is just a complete mess. So then you saw a little extra Stanley Johnson here. Ultimately, fantasy-wise, obviously Anthony Davis. Obviously, if you have Russell Westbrook, what are you doing? But you're going to have to start him at this point because you sort of made that bed. But Malik Monk is a hard go as long as LeBron is out. I think Melo, I would give the go with LeBron out. Portland is not a team that's going to exploit the Lakers the way that Trae Young can. And then when LeBron comes back, you probably get rid of those two guys. Meanwhile, on the Atlanta side, I like Bogdan Bogdanovic. He's playing his way back into game shape. He's up to 27 minutes here, and he's been the best wing for the Hawks since he got his legs back. You guys know I've been way down on Kevin Huerter. I've been down more than most on DeAndre Hunter. I think there's only a couple of us in the analyst ranks that have been sort of cautioning you all on the Hunter stuff. You might remember my multiple rants on how he just isn't doing anything besides shooting. And so when that goes away, which is what we saw here, he didn't get that many shots. He was struggling with AD at times. Free throws were weird. Things turn ugly quick when there isn't other stuff, reliable other stuff, to hold up, to prop up the fantasy line. Will he be a late round guy? Yeah, because he's going to play starters minutes and he makes them better. Will he be a difference maker? Nope. The other fantasy note on this game, Okongwu, because of how well he was playing with Trae Young, he went 8 for 9 shooting. Yowza. And they were easy, man. It was not like he was firing away. He was dunking. He saw some extra time, and Capella, his time was diminished a little bit. But Clint played relatively well in the game as well. It was just that Okongwu was so good for most of the fourth quarter, they let him run. I would love to say that it's time to keep Okongwu on your team. I just, he's coming off the bench behind Capella, and most of the time, Capella then gets the first crack at the important minutes. He's going to be the guy in the 26 to 30 range. Okongwu's going to be the guy in the 18 range. And then every once in a while, you'll have a game where it pivots a little bit. And even in this one, which was more of a best case, Capella still played more minutes. I don't know that you need to hang on to Okongwu much as I wish it was going to shift right now. I don't think it's gonna. Nothing of note with the Trailblazers. We can move along from that one until we hear about anybody coming back for them. I think this is basically what they are now. And then with Chicago, we were paying attention to Ayo Dosunmu. He's been on the radar here. How will he fare with Levine, DeRozan, and Vooch all in the lineup? And the answer is really nicely. 7.6 boards, 11 assists, a 3-ball, 2 steals, almost no usage to speak of. Somehow ended up with 11 assists. I guess that'll happen when guys around you can shoot real well. I'm not a buyer on Kobe White. He had a better shooting game here, just got more shots. But I'll tell you, Ayo, if you've got him, stick with it. There seems to be enough non-usage things for him to do right now. Yes, Portland, that's a good opponent if you're going to rack up fantasy stuff. But to me, he's definitely bought himself more time. No question. Question on the Cavaliers is, would anybody step in and do what Lauri Markkanen was doing, or some reasonable facsimile of it? Could Dean Wade become consistent? He had a better game here, but no is the answer. Could J.D. Osman become consistent? No. Could Isaac Okoro start shooting in the starting lineup? The answer is no. So overall, the answer is none of the above. So it's just Darius Garland, Jarrett Allen, Kevin Love, Evan Mobley. Markkanen's absence just took one fantasy name off the board. That's it. On the Detroit side, things are about to get real ugly. Not from a straight basketball standpoint, from a rotations standpoint. Because we know Cade is going to play, Sadiq Bey is going to play. Beyond that, nothing's really set in stone. Killian Hayes, they're bringing off the bench now. They want him to try to get more experience against second units, so Corey Joseph is a very quiet starter. Jeremy Grant is about to come back. That probably punts Hamidou Diallo to the bench and Sadiq Bey down to the small forward spot. So Grant will come back and get his big chunk of shots. Kelly Olynyk is close. Does he just take Trey Lyles 20 minutes? Or is it a three-headed monster now? Or is Trey Lyles going to get traded? Will they scale back Isaiah Stewart further? He played more minutes in this game than usual. Finally had a better ball game. I mean, he continues to be quite bad this year, so I don't at all feel bad about dumping him 3 weeks ago and just not worrying about it anymore. But I'm less bullish on Kelly Olynyk than I was back in mid-December when it was like, oh, he should be back any day now, and Jeremy Grant's not close, and Isaiah Stewart's been horrible, and Trey Lyles is bleh. But now everybody's playing, and he's still in protocols, or he's about to be out of them, or whatever the hell it is. I'm holding on to Olynyk because I sat on him for a while, so now I kind of have to see what happens, but I'm starting to think that it's like maybe a 30% chance that things work out well for him. And the way that they work out well is if Lyles gets moved, or they just turn him off, or if Jeremy Grant gets moved, because that opens up enough power forward minutes for Olynyk, on top of presumably 15 center minutes. That gets him into the mid-20s, and that would be more than enough for fantasy value on the Kelly Olynyk front. It was a busy damn Sunday, wasn't it? Denver beat Milwaukee is a high-scoring game. Denver shot 60%. I maintain, besides Jokic, who's just been insane lately, Will Barton hovering right on the edge. He's been warmer again lately, so that's good. And in this one, Aaron Gordon and Monte Morris both had start-worthy games. But I'll tell you, if you can figure out who's going to do it on a given night for Denver, cool, man. I can't be bothered with that. It's not worth my time. None of them is exciting enough. That's really what it comes down to. The big games are still only kind of okay. Feh. And Milwaukee's sort of a boring fantasy spot, too. It seems like Grayson Allen has really bought his way back into the good graces there. Was hurt for a while, was COVID for a while. But he's the starting shooting guard, and he's just going to sort of quietly plod along alongside these other guys. I thought there was a chance Dante DiVincenzo might jump over him. He hasn't. Pat Connaughton's gone useless since Allen came back. I think it's best to just stick with the four main guys out that way. Easy enough. Dallas fell asleep at the wheel, lost in Orlando. Whoopsies. No Kristaps Porzingis. Thought Maxi Kleber would have a better ball game. He was pretty quiet here, but, high 20s in minutes. He'll generally get up near 30 when Porzingis is out. He's worth streaming despite this slow ball game. No, you're not going to roll Marquis Chris out there. He has a great fantasy profile, but, 18, 19 minutes isn't going to be consistently enough. Reggie Bullock probably not going to be doing enough. If they give him the starting job and turn him loose for 30-some-odd minutes alongside Doncic, you might give him a look in deeper leagues, but not right now. Not after one good ball game off the bench. Chuma Okeke, 2 good games in a row, but Captain Buzzkill at your service here at Fantasy NBA Today. He's been really hot. That's the thing. For Okeke, the steals are going to be there, and they've been crazy high, actually, for him this year. 1.4 steals and only 23 and change minutes per ball game. Like, he's a guy that, with starters' minutes, could push 2 steals per game. And over the last month, he's been a fantasy start-worthy guy, mostly because of 1.7 steals and almost a block per ball game. And to that end, you can probably roll with it and hope that those defensive numbers stay as high as they have been. I can't guarantee they will. That's a really difficult pace to keep up for anyone. When he's shooting the ball well, as he has been lately, generally like 4 or 5 of his last 6 or 7 games have been pretty good shooting contests, then he's definitely a start because you're getting the 3-pointers on top of a few rebounds and then all the defensive numbers. When the shooting goes away, he's pretty much just a steals guy at that point. Like the game where he shot 2 for 9, it was 3 steals and a fart the rest of his line. Or you go back to that game against Portland where he didn't shoot very well. Or the game before that, he didn't shoot. He had 5 steals in those 2 games and a block, but nothing else. So there's a Matisse Thybulle element to it. Do we know that he can keep that up? I'm inclined to say probably not. He was at 1.1 steals in 25 minutes last year to be at 1.4 in 23 and a half minutes this season. I mean, maybe something clicked, and he's just going to be a steals monster for this entire season, and perhaps it levels back off next year. That type of stuff does happen. So, yeah, probably he belongs on rosters, but I'm also pretty cautious about saying this is something that, especially on the defensive side, really does stick for the rest of the way. And, of course, Chuma playing well has actually sucked a few minutes away from Mo Bamba. Don't abandon ship there. His fantasy profile is too nice. But just understand that, maybe he's not going to play 31 minutes a game like he did at the beginning of the year. That was always a bit of a sell high anyway. Bismack Biyombo, still mildly useful on that Phoenix side. Not great. Javel Mcgee came back. They flip-flopped. Mcgee came off the bench. They're probably both streamable if Mcgee is starting. If he's coming off the bench, I don't think I would trust him, which is where we're at right now. Cam Johnson hasn't done quite as much as I would have hoped in a Jay Crowder stream, but I think you got to stick with that. We've seen when Crowder's out, Johnson is generally reliable. Right now, we're in the middle of a little Mikal Bridges push. I mean, we're very much in the middle of a Chris Paul push, but it's nice to see Bridges kind of starting to get himself, I don't want to say on track because it hasn't been a bad season. It's just been kind of a quiet one. There was no real step forward for him. He's number 65 overall. But recently, we've seen some signs of offensive enjoyment. And I'm not talking about for a month. I'm talking about a week. So it's a very small sample size of Bridges doing a little bit more. Hopefully it sticks. I don't know that it will. Devin Booker's been... I saw a stat that Booker's leading the NBA in shot attempts over the last month. So that's something, which means that there just isn't as much for a guy like Cam Johnson, who's not the main focal point, especially, again, if Bridges is taking a few extra. Spurs rested everyone in this ballgame, so just throw this thing out. Push it off to the side. Spurs are not an interesting fantasy team, but when they rest their entire starting lineup pretty much, Derek White sat, DeJounte Murray sat, Jakob Poeltl sat. Oddly, Devin Vassell didn't, but couldn't get a shot to go down for the life of him. Lonnie Walker, you figured he would get a bunch of looks. He did. Doug McDermott had a bunch of looks. Keldon Johnson had a bunch of looks. Who cares, man? Those guys are coming back. This was it. There's no point in recapping that one because that was very much catching a shooting star. Came and went. Joe Ingles, hurt his knee. They're hoping that it's not as bad as it looked. It's possible that the news on Ingles might have even broken since I recorded this podcast, but as of this moment, they are fearing a very serious injury, but it's not yet diagnosed. Things are messy in Utah right now. No Donovan Mitchell, no Rudy Gobert, and now likely no Joe Ingles for a long while. You can keep rolling Hassan Whiteside out. He's in a free throw funk. I mean, he's generally not very good there, but he was better after that one season where he just totally forgot how to shoot them. Mike Conley, Bojan Bogdanovic, Jordan Clarkson, those guys are startable right now. Royce O'Neal hovering right on the edge of startable in kind of a boring way. And hopefully Mitchell is back relatively soon. He started to clear protocols. He got through the first stage of them, but he's not totally out. And then with Gobert, I said it even last week, said it last Monday, he thought he was coming back in a week. And we all have seen enough calf injuries in our lives. I've experienced a strained calf. That doesn't go away in a week. I think he's probably out at least another week. If you're budgeting on Gobert here, I think this is at least a 2-weeker, maybe more. And then with Minnesota, still no Patrick Beverly. I'm so annoyed with Patrick Beverly right now because he was questionable last Monday. Questionable. He was questionable. I think they had 4 games this week. He was questionable for every one of them and didn't play the whole damn week. I started him in a weekly league on Monday and was like, oh, he's questionable. He's 50-50 today. That probably leans towards 60-40 by the next game and 70-30. But, he'll play. Surely he'll play 1 or 2 games this week. Nope. Frickin' Pat Beverly and his slow healing crap. I should have known better. Jaden McDaniels went 9 for 9 in this game, but you can pretty much ignore that. When Beverly and D'Angelo Russell are out, D'Lo dealing with a shin injury right now. Malik Beasley is usually the guy you grab. He just only had 12 shots and didn't get to play as much, precisely because Taurean Prince and McDaniels played a lot better, and the game was a blowout. So Cat and Anthony Edwards, I don't know why they played mid-30s in minutes anyway. I guess it was somewhat close until the fourth quarter. I admit I didn't watch this one live, but Cat had probably his best game of the year. Triple-double, super efficient. He's having, I would argue that Cat is having the quietest top 8 fantasy season that I can remember. He hasn't had a spectacular game in I don't know how long before this one, but there he is, still there, inside the top 10, just hanging around, doing good stuff every darn night. Kind of quietly, somehow. This portion of the show is brought to you by our friends at ThriveFantasy.com and the Thrive Fantasy app. Prop up, people, with prop bets at Thrive Fantasy. No longer must you toil at the deepest corners of the darkest dumpsters in DFS gaming. No longer must you try to figure out if Saban Lee is going to play 6 minutes in a ball game and take 4 shots. No longer must you try to figure out if Jeremiah Robinson Earl is going to log more than 19 minutes in a basketball game. No longer must you determine if Matt Thomas is worth playing on the Chicago Bulls. Because at Thrive Fantasy, you only need to focus on the names, the big names, the superstars, the folks you care about. 20 prop bets to choose from. You pick 10 overs and unders. If you get the most points from your selections, you win money in the Thrive Fantasy Tournament du jour. 100% deposit match bonus and multiple free game vouchers with just a $10 deposit using promo code ETHOS, ETHOS. Head on over there, throw $10 in the account, and you get another 10 on the deposit match, and 2 $20 contest entry vouchers. $60 of play for $10 of deposit at ThriveFantasy.com with promo code ETHOS. Check them out now. They're a fantastic partner. You guys are going to have a lot of fun. I promise you're going to enjoy yourself. It's fun. In my estimation, it's better than traditional DFS. I know that plenty of folks out there love regular DFS. I'm just not one of them. So something different, something special. This is right up my alley. Thrive Fantasy, they've got the app, Apple Store, Android Store, wherever you got to go, or the computer, ThriveFantasy.com. That's where my old people like me go to play it. Check it out now. Check it out now. Shifting the clock back to Saturday, Boston beat New Orleans on the road. Boy, when Jayson Tatum goes, Jayson Tatum really goes. Has anyone had a more up and down season than Tatum. By the way, his free throw percent is now up to 85. Remember when that was like 78 and we couldn't figure out what the hell was going on there? Field goal percent still a 43 on the year. Tatum's worked himself up to number 20 overall on the season, but he's number 9 the last 2 months. So basically, after a slow first month, he's settled in just fine to be right where we thought he would be. Cool. I'll tell you, though, the guy that I'm so enamored with on this team is Robert Williams. He's a mid-second rounder over the last 2 months, and he's actually been getting better since then. The Time Lord, over the last month, which is about a dozen games, 13 or so games for the NBA, he is number 6 in 9-cat. 9.5 points, 11 rebounds, 2.5 assists, 1.3 steals, 2.5 blocks, 71% from the field, 95% at the free throw line. This is a man possessed. He has figured it out mid-season, and they are riding him now. Big minutes. His body is handling it a little bit better. I mean, if you look at who he's in front of over this last month in that top 12, right behind him, Joel Embiid, DeJounte Murray, Cat, Butler, CP3, Trae Young, Jayson Tatum, Rudy Gobert. The Time Lord is right behind LeBron over the last month. And by the way, this is with Anthony Davis at number 4 in the last month, even though he's only played 3 games. You pull him out, Time Lord's number 5 in that span. I said in a tweet on Saturday, I think you can go and trade for him, and I don't think you're going to have to pay a first-round price to get him. I think you could get him for a third-rounder right now, and I definitely would. He's winning leagues. If you can cover his lack of scoring, he's winning leagues. His rebounding is elite. His passing is terrific for a big man. Big positive in steals. Monster positive in blocks, field goal, and free throw, and turnovers. Like, this is a guy that suddenly has become a big positive in 6 out of 9 categories. And I would argue 2.5 assists out of your center spot. Is that a positive? I don't know, but it's certainly not a negative. The only thing he's not getting you is 3-pointers, but who the cares? Pile those up somewhere else. Pick up frickin' Duncan Robinson off the wire when he got hot last month. Someone's hitting threes out there. You can't get what Time Lord's doing. This is, I mean, it's clicked. It's clicked. This was the whole thing. Would it click this year? Would he figure out the defensive side of the ball to be in the right place at the right time? And about 5-6 weeks ago, he did it. Al Horford was a little bit better in this game. Still only played 25 minutes, though. Grant Williams saw some extra run for reasons I'm not completely sure of. Horford's a tough one right now. I think you have to hold on him, but I get it. He's been quite bad. Josh Hart banged his knee in this one. Hopefully he'll be able to play through it. This is the story with Hart, though. He never plays more than 4 or 5 games in a row without some kind of injury. It's the Patrick Beverly syndrome. I keep getting asked about Jose Alvarado. He played 19.5 minutes. I know he had a great ball game, but no one done in 19.5 minutes. There's like 3 guys in the NBA, and they're all centers. Devontae Graham, generally startable when Brandon Ingram is out. Willie Hernan-Gomez, startable when Jonas Valanciunas is out. No real magical changes with New Orleans. That's all kind of a one-to-one, who do you stream when X player is on the shelf sort of deal. Indiana, just the bleep with that at this point. Done. I'm done with the stream stuff here. We dug into it. We thought maybe we could find something with Torrey Craig. He's been horrible. Total misfire there. He had a couple games that were serviceable and some quite bad ones. Justin Holiday was kind of hanging in there, but blech at this point. Freaking Dwayne Washington has been the best player not named Domantas Sabonis on the team lately. So you can start Sabonis, you can start LeVert. Beyond that, move on. Sacramento almost stole one in Philadelphia. They led this game for a while. Tyrese Halliburton, holy crap. 38, 3, 7, 3 steals, 5 threes. Hyper efficient. Yowza. He's had himself a pretty good run at Tyrese Halliburton. And he has zoomed under the radar this year. He's number 27 per game in 9 category leagues at this point. This is a guy who was drafted like near 60, 50 or 60. Everybody was complaining about it when he was actually a half round ahead of his ADP. Now he's like 3 rounds ahead of his ADP, and people are still like, meh. Because he only scores 14 points a game? I don't. This is a hell of a fantasy player. Rashaan Holmes' minutes are starting to get back up where they need to be. He was dealing with Joel Embiid this game, so give him a bit of a pass on the actual stats, but 31 minutes, that's key. Marvin Bagley turned an ankle, which means we should see a little bit more Chimezie Metu in the next ball game, perhaps even a little more Damian Jones, depending on how they go here. We wait on Darren Fox. If he plays, Davion Mitchell is not useful. If he doesn't, at this point, Mitchell is borderline useful. He's a low-ceiling kind of back-end streamer type. But again, we're talking about where can you find three-pointers on the wire? There's one. Not interesting, but there's one. Nothing of note at all on the Philly side. And basically, this ballgame proved all the things we're worried about, which is when they're healthy, that is, Seth Curry came back, and I know Furkan Korkmaz has a sore knee, so he might sit one out. But when Curry, Korkmaz, Thibault, and Danny Green are all healthy, Curry gets the starters minutes, and the other three guys split like 40 backup minutes across a few different positions, and none of them hits value. George Niang is in that blender also. So gross. Leave it alone. Oh, was this game amazing. Toronto at Miami. Raptors win in triple overtime. Woof. Look at the minute totals on this game. By the way, if you want to know who's almost definitely not going to make it through the next 2 weeks, look at the minutes and see who played more than 50 in this game. And you can just mark them off for a missed game. Jimmy Butler, questionable with a sore ankle. I mean, yeah, duh. 53 minutes. 37, 14, and 10. 3 steals and 2 blocks. Pascal Siakam, 56 minutes and 31 seconds. Scotty Barnes, the rookie, 56 minutes. Someone was going to die on the court in this game. Anunoby, 55-50. Trent, 55-40. Freddie VanVleet, who just came back from a sore knee. What on God's green earth are you doing? I know these games are important. I know you want to have a successful NBA season. Toronto, you're the 8th seed right now, Raptors. Let one go. Freddie VanVleet, I can't imagine he's good to go in the next ball. I know we haven't heard anything yet, but crap, dude. Dude just missed a bunch of games with a sore knee, and then he plays 53 and a half minutes. Anyway, if you were counting on bench player Chris Boucher to be involved in this game, which I was, bad news, the bench didn't get to play. They will in the next one. They will have to, because someone's probably going to be out injured, or if they try to play these guys this many minutes, they're going to shoot 32% for the ball game on a good night, and someone's just going to pass out in the third quarter. On the Miami side, I'm intrigued by PJ Tucker, which is something I thought I would only say up to 2018. What year was he the small ball center on the Rockets? I think that was actually more recent than that. When he's not playing center, I generally find it hard to give a thumbs up on PJ, but they're really getting him open in the corner a lot lately. Problem with Tucker, of course, is if he doesn't get those pair of corner threes, he's going to score 2 points. So your team kind of has to be okay with that. If you're a punt points team, I think PJ Tucker probably has a spot on your roster. He's top 125 over the last month if you're not punting points. If you are, he jumps up into that 75 to 90 range. So check your team out. Can you handle it? Maybe. I don't know. He's not even really a specialist because it's not like he's rebounding that much. It's 3-and-D at this point, and it's just a slightly more reliable than usual 3-and-D. I think Duncan Robinson will bounce back. You might see him get dropped after this horrible ball game, but he'll be okay. Especially if anybody has to sit out the next one from, coughing dust after playing 55 minutes. Memphis beat up on Washington. Bradley Beal went full point guard mode in this game. 9 points, 12 assists, but couldn't hit a shot. Kuzma scored 30. He had cooled off considerably after that heater earlier this month, which, again, that's why we were saying try to trade him for a top 75 guy, because, yeah. Daniel Gafford, DNP. No real reason was given. I kept expecting them to be like, oh, by the way, Gafford was dealing with a sore ankle, and then that sort of just never materialized. Even after the fact, he just DNP'd it. So the Wizards tried cutting back to only 2 real centers in Thomas Bryant and Montrezl Harrell. Didn't help them very much, but I think, at least in my eyes, it means that Thomas Bryant, who started the game and played 20 minutes, he's the guy they do ultimately want to ramp back into that starter's job. So this to me, and I know that Bryant is way overstashed, considering he has not yet had a fantasy-worthy game this year, and I don't know how long it's going to be before he does, but he's probably the guy you now look at. He's played 20 minutes in 2 of the last 3 games as his body starts to get back into a rhythm. If he clears 26 minutes, he goes top 100. He doesn't actually elevate that fast fantasy-wise because he's mostly field goal percent. That's generally it. He's not that great of a rebounder. Last year, he hit fantasy value because of field goal percentage. Doesn't block that many shots. He hit 1 3-pointer, 14 points, 6 boards, which is like, it's fine for a center, but it's nothing special. And that was in 27 minutes. So that's kind of where you need to get him back to this year if it's going to be fantasy value. Could it happen? Yeah, it could happen. If they decide ultimately that they want to go more to like a 1 center type of deal. I don't know that that's coming unless Montrezl Harrell gets moved. But Bryant is probably worth that last stash spot on your roster. That's kind of the end result of that circuitous discussion. Grizzlies blew him out, so minutes were a little all over the map. John Conchar played the big minutes in this ball game, as I shrug in confusion. Steven Adams also played 28 minutes. He had one of his better games of the year. I don't know, man. D'Anthony Melton getting 27 minutes was a really nice thing, despite Desmond Bane being back. So, cool. This is really good stuff for Melton. Maybe it's finally starting to stick a little bit. And Brandon Clark, his minutes were a little lower in this ballgame, but he still did the same stuff we were liking before. So, no, I'm not into Steven Adams. Yes, I'm into Melton. Yes, I'm into Brandon Clark. No, I'm not into John Conchar. No, I'm not into Slow-Mo. And I don't know that I need to talk about anybody else. I mean, obviously, yes, I'm into Desmond Bane and John Moran and Jaren Jackson Jr., but that's called implied. Lamarcus Aldridge turned an ankle in Brooklyn's loss in Golden State. I even said, I think on Friday's show, that I thought Lamarcus would not get to play much in this game anyway. He was midway through having actually a decent ball game when he got hurt in the fourth quarter. If he saw another 5-6 minutes, this probably would have been a fantasy-friendly night. Left the arena on crutches. My guess is that he probably misses a week or a week and a half, which means Nick Claxton, who started this game, most likely plays more than 17 minutes in the next one. He probably plays enough, I would think 25. So pick up Nick Claxton. He's startable while Aldridge is out. I'm trying to hold on to LaMarcus in places where I can. I totally get it. If you're in a head-to-head league where you just can't take that 0, then fine, move on. James Harden was a late scratch with a wrist injury, or a hand. I think it was right hand, actually, not the wrist. He'll probably be back for the next one. Can't imagine he misses all that much time. If he's out, and this is the same thing, if 2 of the studs are out, then Patty Mills is a must-start guy. When 2 of the studs are in, Mills is more of like a 40% chance of victory on a given night. So he fits much better. I guess he actually fits in most formats, because head-to-head, you're like, okay, great, someone's going to be out, so he'll probably have fantasy value like roughly 1 out of every 2 games. That's good enough in head-to-head. And then in Roto, you just pick your spots. If Harden's out, play him. If Kyrie's out, play him. Mills, that is. Claxton is only linked to Aldridge on this stuff. Otto Porter expected to sit out a ball game for the Warriors, keeping himself in tip-top shape, but I'll tell you, that is one of my favorite streams of the year. Since he moved into the starting lineup and Jonathan Kuminga went to the bench, Porter has been dominant. And I know that's a weird phrase to use on a guy who's scoring, like 13, 14 points over that stretch? What are we talking about? About 2 weeks? Damn, it's been a nice 2 weeks, though. Over that stretch, he's top 50, 12, 6, and 2 with a steal, a block, almost 2 3-pointers, 56% from the field, about 80% at the free throw line, 78%. Less than half a turnover. 9-cat monster. This is like vintage Otto Porter. It's one of my favorite streams. Just keep rolling it out there, because the news on Draymond Green continues to be kind of bad. Andrew Wiggins had a better ball game here. He's generally startable, and you knew there was going to be the All-Star game backlash. Everybody talking about how he's the worst All-Star ever, so of course he was pissed off. Klay Thompson's starting to get there. Cool. Jordan Poole has found some small amounts of value left, but I'm not into it. And then Kevon Looney, rebounds, and that's it. But really for the Warriors, the fact that Thompson is starting to get there, 27 minutes here, and Porter has been so very good. With Porter sitting one out, It's not clear. Does Kuminga actually step in and get a bunch of those minutes back, or do they just sort of run small and let Andrew Wiggins play a bit more power forward? That would be my guess. They probably spread it out and go kind of small, but whatever. I want to remind all you guys that I continue to have a delightful present to those who hit me up on Twitter about our buddies at mybookie.ag. The Super Bowl is coming. Rams, Bengals. Early line, I believe, is Rams -4. Are you getting in on this stuff? By the way, historically, if you wait until the very last minute, because this is one of the most heavily bet games of the entire year, I think it actually might be the biggest single game, the public gets more involved in the Super Bowl than any other game, so weird lines develop. And one thing that develops on the Super Bowl is that the money line and the spread don't match, because public bettors love to bet favorites on the spread and dogs on the money line if they have no idea what's about to happen in a ball game. So most likely, as we get close to the Super Bowl, you're going to see a Rams favorite number that's probably a little bit too high, and you're going to see a Bengals money line dog number that's probably a little bit too low. So the dog on the spread and the favorite on the money line tend to be an interesting combo where you actually have a little bit of built-in value. It's like a built-in middling opportunity without actually having to have the line move at all. Want to know where you can do that? Our friends at mybookie.ag. They'll also have a ton of props on the Super Bowl. They've got other things that are going on that are already starting to roll out. And if you want to open up an account over there with promo code HoopBall, please do check with me first, because I think I got a present for you. At Dan Besbris on Twitter, DanBesbris. Also, shout out to our friends at manscaped.com. Promo code there is Ethos20. And our friends at expressvpn.com with the special hyperlink. Call it a URL these days. expressvpn.com/hoopball. Those are our partners. You heard about Thrive Fantasy earlier in the show. Got a really cool testimonial on Twitter from Tall, probably pronouncing it wrong. I think it's Tall, who said he joined Thrive Fantasy, did the $10 deposit like I talked about earlier in the show, got the $10 match, got the coupons to join the vouchers to join the contest, and he won a $1,500 contest. Turned $10 into $1,500 and then won a $500 contest a couple days later. Dude took $10 in Thrive Fantasy and turned it into $2,000 in a week. That's probably a best case scenario. I don't think that's going to happen for all of you like that, but if you listen to our DFS guys and you get involved over there, that's pretty cool, man. Very cool testimonial. Thank you to Tal for sending that my way on Twitter. That's pretty neat. Quickly here, looking back on Friday just to make sure we didn't miss anybody. And the answer is yes, we did. The Oklahoma City Thunder, which actually got a tiny bit interesting because Shai Gilgeous-Alexander turned his ankle and he's officially out through the All-Star break. Or did they say through the trade deadline? Now I'm getting that mixed up. I think it's through the All-Star break. So I think we're talking about 2.5, 3 weeks at this point where there will not be Shai. Lou Dort should have all the usage he can handle. This probably moves him actually up and over the cut line. I'd been out on Dort because all he's generally been doing is shooting threes. He's going to have to do more now. Josh Giddey probably moves back up above the cut line here. I got some Darius Baisley questions. Every time something good happens with Darius Baisley, somebody asks me if they should pick him up. No! How do you forget the month in between good ball games? No. All that this does is probably move Dort and Giddey from just on the outside of fantasy value to just on the inside. And that's even kind of still a maybe. Probably. Let's go with probably. It's better than it's a little hotter than a maybe. Houston. Kevin Porter Jr. Was in protocols. Then he was out. It was a non-COVID illness. Then it was a COVID illness. Now it's back to a non-COVID illness. I don't have any idea what's going on in Houston. But when Porter's out, Jalen Green, Garrison Matthew, all these guys got enough usage to have value. Likelihood is he'll be back, and then those guys move back onto the shelf. And Houston goes back to basically being a team of Christian Wood and nothing. And I believe... Nope. The Knicks. Oh, the lowly Knicks these days. Boy, they are flailing. They are flailing. I think the Knicks might have too many half-useful bodies. Tom Thibodeau's gone soft, man. He's not playing anybody 35 minutes a game besides Julius Randle these days. What happened to you, Tom? You used to play your whole starting five, 37, 38, 39 minutes a game. I kid. We're at a point right now where Nerlens Noel is playing, which is something. He had 5 and 5 with a steal and a block in 20 minutes. If he plays 20 minutes every ball game, he's actually fantasy startable. And if he plays 20 minutes every ball game, it's not clear that Mitchell Robinson is anymore fantasy startable. And even when he was, it was only for little stretches. Mitch Rob's bad free throw percent and sinking block rate have kind of pushed him outside the useful bubble. I would rather have Nerlens Noel and hope that Thibodeau gets annoyed with Robinson and flip-flops those guys again. Knicks kind of need Derrick Rose. A lot went down the toilet when Rose got hurt. Kemba played in this one, but I think he's too big of a headache. Evan Fournier had one of his better games, but that's also a headache. Knicks are a mess. They legitimately don't have a single fantasy-friendly player right now. Consistently, on like a day-to-day basis. If you go to the Knicks, this is an eye-popping exercise. The New York Knicks, on the entire season, don't have a player inside the top 100. Not one. Julius Randle's number 116 per game in 9-cat. Alec Burks and Derrick Rose are 131 and 132. Nerlens, 142, but his minutes are lower, obviously. Mitchell Robinson, 152. Kemba, 156. Fournier, 171. And it's been worse than that lately. Over the last month, Nerlens Noel, who at 124 in the 4 games he's played, has been the best New York Knicks fantasy player. Julius Randle's number 179 over the last month. What's that? You think the last month isn't a long enough sample size? Great. Thanks for asking. Over the last 2 months, Randle's number 140. No one inside the top 140 on the Knicks in the last 2 months. Bench them all, man. You could bench them all, and I wouldn't tell you were wrong. Those are not startable guys in a 12-team league. All right, we're all caught up, everybody. Hey, again, please do visit our YouTube page. I really want you guys to drop me that thumbs up. I don't care about I know we did the advertisements, and certainly I'd love if you were a part of that stuff, but the thing I really need you to do between now and February 10th, and I'm going to remind you every day, it's going to be annoying. Even after you do it, it's going to be annoying because you're going to have to sit and listen through it. But please go to youtube.com/sportsethos or go to the link in the description of this podcast and click through and hit the thumbs up and the subscribe and the alarm button. You're not going to want to miss it. It's so much fun. Our live coverage is the best. I am Dan Besbris. This was Fantasy NBA Today, a Sports Ethos presentation. At Dan Besbris on Twitter, at Ethos Fantasy BK on Twitter for the best damn news feed on planet Earth. Have a great Monday. Back at you tomorrow. Hey, I think we're going to have Jonas on the pod this week. No, I said we thought maybe next week. It's looking more like this week. I know he's got some stashes up his sleeve. Stashes are hard, man. That's why we go to the best of the best for that stuff. Talk to you later.
Did you know Amazon provides ways of working that fits your lifestyle? They know you value your time outside of work, juggling family, school, friends, or other activities. That's why they offer a variety of shifts that work for you. There are full-time, part-time, and even temporary opportunities that can work with your schedule. With great starting pay and sign-on bonuses. If you want a career that fits and adapts to your lifestyle, head to Amazon.com/apply. Amazon is a proud equal opportunity employer.